Hello again. This morning we worked on alternate nostril breathing when we were working on our day 4 morning of breath and grace. And alternate nostril breathing, first of all, one of the particular reasons why we do alternate nostril breathing is because it brings focus and clarity to our mind. What happens when you're breathing in through the one side, you're stimulating the other side of the brain, and then likewise you breathe into the other side and breathe into that opposite side of the brain. And so you're constantly stimulating the opposite sides of your brain. And so when you're stimulating that with breath, just when we looked at how breath impacts our body with each part of the breath, the inhale, the pause, and the exhale and pause. The same kind of is true with the brain, right? When we're inhaling, we're allowing freshly oxygenated blood to surge through to the brain, which keeps it alert and healthy. And then the retention of that helps the blood flow around the area. We have the exhale that allows the lymphatic fluid to collect any of the toxins built up around the brain. So meaning anything that no longer serves the brain is collected, and with the exhale, it is expelled out. So when we practice alternate nostril breathing, stimulating either sides of the brain like that, we are allowing our brain to come into a focus. So if you practice that this morning with me, or you haven't yet, you'll be practicing it later. Something to keep in mind is how your head feels when you practice alternate nostril breathing. Generally speaking, when you just practice 4-part breath or any kind of simple breath practice, it brings a state of mental calm because we're really calming and soothing the central nervous system. And then when we are particularly focusing on alternate sides of the brain and stimulating them, we're not necessarily going to feel that same kind of calm as you would in just breathing 4-part breath or your 3-chamber breath. But you're going to feel alert and focused. And so this is where I'd like to move in with grace in this sense, is this mental focus that you can grow into from alternate nostril breathing, right? When we come out of that, we have created a sort of mental clarity that now allows us to look at things in a different light or with a different perspective. And this is really important when we're trying to grow inside of a space to move with grace. So how can we bring that into a mat practice? Obviously, again, you're not going to, stop in Warrior 1 and start to breathe an alternate nostril breath. That might be an interesting dynamic, but I've never experienced that in a practice I've attended, and I've never instructed that. However, you will find that teachers will throw in alternate nostril breathing at the beginning or the end of a practice, just like our 3-chamber breath that we did the other day. But it's really fantastic. What I like to do is do an alternate nostril breathing practice at the beginning of a class that I know I'm going to be focusing on a lot of standing balance postures where we need that mental focus in order to move through those balance postures and maintain those balance postures. One in particular that I'd like to examine at this moment is eagle pose. Eagle pose in and of itself has its own kind of mental challenges in that not only is it a standing balance posture, but furthermore, because you wrap your arms up, you are creating that visual blockage that you can't see through to your drishti point or your focal point. And so you have to kind of see past that visual obstacle of your arms. So in our eagle posture, I've picked it for that reason there. One, because it is a pose where we are challenging our mental focus by putting an obstacle in front of our face. But furthermore, I chose eagle posture because oftentimes when it's practiced, the person practicing it is often curling in and not actually allowing the breath to happen. And so therefore creating even more compound obstacles and impeding the eagle posture to happen. So eagle pose. Eagle pose is a very dynamic posture. And a challenging one to get into in the sense that first of all, it's a standing balance posture. Secondly, we are creating a visual obstacle, as I just mentioned. And then most importantly, the flexibility of our shoulders plays a role in how we can best come into this pose. So let's first of all look at a full eagle pose. I have some physical injuries that I'm working through, so eagle pose is a little bit of a challenge for me, so please bear with me if I'm not fully in it, but hopefully I can explain enough a way that you can understand where I'm coming from. So in eagle pose, we have first the dynamics of crossing our legs over. So one leg is over top of the other leg. And then we have the dynamics of our arms being crossed over. So I'm going to start with our arms because that's the more challenging one for me at this moment because of my shoulder. So when we cross our arms over, right, we have an option of coming into a hugging position, which I'll look at in a second. But the full pose is an open palm position, right? And the tendency is to pull down, but we want to have nice open shoulders, right? So I want to be able to draw my shoulder blades in and pull them down my spine while I'm still keeping my elbows up and my palms flat. And then we come into the balance part, right? Crossing. So I have my right arm under, so I'm going to bring my right leg over, crossing over, coming into a chair-like position, right? And so we want to keep our spine nice and long with the rib cage lifted up and the shoulders open. And so you should be able to see here how this rib cage is up and shoulders are open the whole time. This is the fundamental part of the pose. Because if your shoulders are curled into this pose, then you're compressing your lungs, as we've already talked about earlier. And when we compress our lungs, we can't have optimal breath. If we can't have optimal breath, not only do we not have space to move into in the pose as we breathe through the pose, but we can't lengthen up into the pose and actually have balance and stability. Our core muscles can't engage because we're too busy trying to hang on to wherever we are. Our muscles just kind of tighten up and hold on to where we are. So what are some options to come into this pose and make it accessible so that we can have optimal breath and be able to move through grace in this pose, to stay mentally focused and allow our body to move into space that we've created? So first of all, we want to focus on our legs. When you come into eagle posture, you'll often see people wrap their back foot around their leg. When you do that, you curl your hips inward. So as soon as you curl your hips inward, your shoulders, no matter how hard you try, they're going to try to open and you're going to be all wonky, right? Because you're trying to open your shoulders, but your hips are pulling in. It doesn't work that way. So I always recommend just having your leg to the outside and the top foot is in a flexed position so that both legs stay equally engaged. So right now my left leg is lifted and I have my left toes lifted and spread. So this leg stays as equally active as my right leg. So my hips can stay open, allowing my spine to lengthen. So that's the lower half of the body. I'm not going to come into the lower half of the body again for a second, just so I can breathe and explain the top half. So options for the top half. So the full pose, as I said, is one arm under, the other arm over, and then coming up into this wrapped position. And you want your palms flat with your fingers spread. I'm not sure if I got that into the camera. So palms flat, fingers spread. And if this can't be achieved, then the next option is bringing your hands to your shoulders, like hugging yourself. And you can see here, I can easily open my shoulders, pull the shoulder blades back and then down my spine so that rib cage lifts up. Notice my elbows are high. They're not coming in. As soon as my elbows come in, that rib cage collapses down, and now I'm back to the position of not being able to have optimal breath, right? So option one is full wrapped position. Notice my elbows are high, my palms are flat, shoulder blades draw in and down. Option two is coming into a hugging position. Nothing has changed in the dynamics except for now I have more length or room for my spine to open up. And that's the key point, is we're always looking for more room or space. And then finally, if balance is an issue for you, or if you have limited flexibility in your shoulders, or both, as I do on many days, then keep it nice and simple and have your hands in prayer. And in prayer, you can have the option of just keeping them in prayer here, or if you want to work on the dynamics of that mental focus, you can always bring your thumbs up toward your third eye, right? I don't have them like into my third eye, but you can do that. But just a way so that you still have room for your shoulders, your shoulder blades to draw in and pull down so that rib cage can be lifted, right? So option one is the full pose as we looked at. So left leg is on top, so that means my left arm will be my underarm, right arm over. I can come into the full pose, drawing my shoulder blades in and pulling down. Nice long torso. So if you notice, I'm nice and open here, right? So that I have full breath capacity. Option number two is here, and I'm losing my balance because I'm talking and moving and not breathing. So let's do that one again. Option number two is with a nice hug position, shoulder blades draw in and pull down. And you can see I have a nice long open torso so that I can have my optimal breath. And final option, let's do that, the other leg, so that I can give my left leg a break. Coming into a nice simple position with my hands at prayer. This is a great starting position. I have full mobility of my shoulders to draw them back and down so that my torso stays nice and long. If I want to challenge myself a little bit more that day, I can bring my thumbs to my third eye or in front of my third eye. The goal is to be able to still breathe and create that space in your torso so that your body can open up into that. Hopefully these little tips are things that you are able to bring into your mat practice. I hope to see you soon on the mat practice. Hopefully Minnie wasn't that big of a distraction because she's been rolling around on the couch in behind the camera for the better part of this time. Anyway, have a fantastic Sunday. We will see you soon.